With a cost of only $4.5 million, it has grossed $250 million worldwide and won one of the few Oscars for Best Original Screenplay in the horror genre in the history of cinema. It's Get Out. How good is this movie? I'll tell you about it today. The main character, Jack, is a photographer. He and Anna have been dating for 4 months. Anna thinks it's time to meet her parents and says she'll take Jack to her house. Jack refuses at first because he's black and he's afraid Anna's parents will discriminate against him. Anna said, "Don't worry, my parents are not racist." In the blink of an eye, he arrived at Anna's house. The parents were very welcoming and didn't care about the color of Jack's skin. Father-in-law is a neurosurgeon. His mother-in-law was a psychiatrist, and they told him about their family. But their maid was strange. She smiled strangely, and the gardener looked at Jack like he was up to no good. "My father-in-law said you must be surprised that all our servants were black. But don't think about it. There was no discrimination. It's just that they were the ones who looked after my parents. Then my parents died and I didn't want them to leave, so they stayed and let them continue working." The in-laws then asked Jack about his family. During the conversation, my father-in-law saw Jack's little gesture. He asked him if he was a smoker. Jack said yes, but he had recently quit smoking. His father-in-law said that if you want to quit, your mother-in-law can help you. She knows a hypnotic technique that can help you quit quickly. But Jack refused. He didn't feel comfortable with people messing with his head. The in-laws didn't press the issue any further and said there was a party here in a couple of days and they wanted Jack to join them. It was a custom left by his father-in-law's father when he was alive. It's an annual event. As they talked, a man came in. This man was Anna's brother, but he wasn't as welcoming as his parents-in-law. There was a constant hostility towards Jack. Then Anna apologized to Jack that she hadn't expected this from his brother and told Jack not to be angry. Unable to sleep at night, Jack got up and wandered around. He had just arrived in the yard when he saw a man running quickly towards him. He was startled. Just as he was about to hit him, the man made a 90-degree turn and ran away. When he turned around, the maid at the window startled him again, standing there in the middle of the night like a ghost. It turned out she was just looking in the mirror. This was too creepy. Frightened, Jack rushed back into the house. He ran into his mother-in-law in the living room. She said she couldn't sleep and asked Jack to talk to her. She picked up a glass and a spoon in her hand. She talked to Jack about hypnosis again. She said that her hypnosis skills were quite unusual, but Jack was a bit dismissive. As she chatted, she rubbed the spoon against the glass. Slowly Jack began to slip into his own painful memories. Slowly his body became uncontrollable. Suddenly he enters a dark space. His body was weightless and he was floating backwards. The image of his mother-in-law becomes more and more distant. He became a third view of his own body. His body is completely separated from his consciousness and he can't do anything. Suddenly he woke up. He found himself in his bedroom. In a state of shock, he first charges his phone. Then he comes outside. Now he can't tell if last night was a dream or a real event. As he turns around, he runs into the gardener. The gardener was the same one who had run around like a dope fiend last night. He seems to be a little hostile to Jack too. He asked Jack how his wife's hypnosis had gone last night. Jack said he couldn't remember much and was a bit confused. But Jack suddenly realized he had lost his smoking habit. He even felt like throwing up when he smelled it. He went on to tell Anna what had happened last night, but Anna didn't say anything. She just reassured him. While he was talking, a line of cars suddenly arrived outside. They were all guests at the party, but they all seemed very interested in Jack, asking him about his sport and touching his muscles. It felt like they were looking at merchandise. Jack thought these people were strange, so he took a picture alone. As he took the picture, he accidentally noticed that one of the customers was black, so he happily went up to say hello. But when the man turned around, Jack was stunned. He also noticed that the man had a very old wife. Finally, Jack tried to punch him in the face, but the man shook his hand without being black at all. Jack was getting confused. What the hell is going on with these guys? He went back to his bedroom to get his phone but found his unplugged from its charging cable. He had charged it this morning. Then he found the maid next door. He suspects she's the one who did it. Then he called his friend Tom. He told him how strange everyone was here and how he'd been hypnotized. Tom reminded him that you should be more vigilant. Letting people fuck with your head. What if they makes you do something stupid, like barking like a dog, like being a slave or something? Anyway, be careful not to get brainwashed. As soon as they finished talking, they saw the maid standing in the doorway. Jack was startled. There was no movement at all. Maid came to apologize to Jack. She said she had left your phone untouched after accidentally dropping it while cleaning, and smiled strangely. Jack looks at her and says it's okay. I'm not going to sue. But when the maid heard that, she thought Jack was trying to make a scene. I'm not in anyone's hands here, and laughed and shed tears. And then she left. Jack was still a bit shaken up. He thought the woman must be mad. Then he went outside. A lot of customers were gathered here, and the strange black man was in there too. As he was talking, Jack took out his phone. He wanted to take a picture of the black man, but he forgot to turn off the flash. The black man's expression changed dramatically when he was suddenly flashed. Blood came out of his nostrils. He went from smiling to crying in pain. He shouted and rushed towards Jack. Jack was instantly baffled. The next thing he knew, the black man was being taken away and controlled. According to his father-in-law, it was an epileptic fit. Jack's flashing lights had caused him to become angry, which is why he was attacking people. But the mother-in-law soon cured the black man. He was back to his old self. But Jack was getting more and more strange. He told Anna that it was definitely not epilepsy. Epilepsy doesn't work like that. And he felt a familiarity with the black man. He felt like he'd seen him somewhere before but couldn't remember. Meanwhile, his father-in-law was holding an auction with all his guests. He had a picture of Jack behind him. What's this about? Is it to sell Jack? A blind customer finally sells it for a high price. Meanwhile, Jack says he wants to get out of here. Anna was sad to hear that. Jack hesitated again. At the end of the night, the guests left. Jack returned to his bedroom. Jack sent the photo of the black man he had taken during the day to his friend Tom. Tom went on to tell him, "We played football with this guy." Jack remembered instantly. "I thought this guy looked familiar." So it was him. But he's a different person. He's dressed differently and he's got an older woman. When Tom heard it was definitely a sex slave, he told Jack to get out of there. But before he could say anything else, Jack's phone went dead. That's when Anna walked in. Jack said we should go now. Anna was surprised that Jack had suddenly changed his mind, but without asking, she went to pack her things. Just then, Jack suddenly noticed a small door in the wall. Then he looked inside with curiosity. It was a pile of photographs. Jack was dumbfounded by this look. They were all pictures of Anna with different black men. Was she a slut? But this was a bit too scummy. The last one was of a maid and a man. What if they were both men and women? Jack was puzzled and puzzled, but he thought there was more to it than that. Then he put the picture back without a word. That's when Anna appeared. Jack said calmly, "Let's go." But as soon as he got downstairs, Anna's brother stopped him in his tracks. Then the family came out. It looked like Jack wasn't going to be able to leave tonight, and the family showed their true colors. Angry, Jack immediately rushed towards Anna's brother. He tried to fight back and get out, but his mother-in-law immediately subdued him with hypnosis. The hypnotism seemed to have been placed inside his head and could be triggered at any time. Jack could see but could not move. Meanwhile, Tom tried to contact Jack but couldn't get through. He suspected that something had happened to Jack and went to the police to report it. He said that Jack might have been kidnapped and used as a slave, but the police laughed at him and didn't believe him. So Jack decides to find out for himself. He was an airport patrolman with some experience. Then he called Jack's phone again, but this time he got through. It was Anna. Tom asked her, "Where was my best friend Jack? Where had he gone?" Anna said that Jack had left 2 days ago and forgotten his phone. Tom said he'd disappeared. Anna was surprised to hear that, but Tom thought she was lying and wanted to get her to talk and record her. But Anna was too smart to see through Tom's tactics. She said, "Why do you keep staring at me and trying to get at me, but you won't talk about Jack?" Angry, Tom hung up the phone. At that moment Jack woke up. He was tied up and there was a TV in front of him. There was someone talking on the TV. The man was the blind man who was the highest bidder at the auction. He told Jack that you were lucky to have been chosen, and then answers Jack's questions. It turned out that they were going to perform a brain transplant. First they hypnotize the person to calm them down, and then the brain is transferred. But not all of it, just part of it. Technically speaking, Jack doesn't disappear after the operation. The consciousness will still be there, but only in a third perspective. You can't do anything. At that point I become you and control your body and coexist with your consciousness. My eyes will then be able to see again. Jack understood everything instantly when he heard it. He wanted my body. Then he asked him why he chose a black man. The man said, "Because black people have strong bodies and that's what we want, but I'm not like the others. I don't care about the color of my skin. It's your eyes that I care about." After that Jack was in despair. That's when he suddenly noticed the cotton coming out of the couch he had scratched up. He seemed to have an idea. A short while later, the sound of his mother-in-law's hypnotic voice appeared on the television. Jack then fell asleep. Meanwhile, his father-in-law had begun the brain replacement operation. Anna's brother gave him a hand. The blind client was already under anesthesia and on the operating table. The father-in-law operated first. Anna's brother went on to transport Jack. Then he untied Jack from all his restraints. Just as he turned around, Jack grabbed something and killed him. It turned out that Jack had just plugged his ears with cotton. He was just pretending to be hypnotized and waiting for the right moment. By now his father-in-law was halfway through the operation, but his son was nowhere to be seen. He tries to check on him, but Jack stabs him to death with his antlers. Jack then went into the living room and scared off the maid and found his mother-in-law. He then sees the cup on the table. The mother-in-law tried to get it, but Jack smashes it before she can. Without the hypnotic tool, Jack was no longer afraid of her and just killed her. Anna was still in the room listening to the song and looking for her prey. Unaware that Jack had already killed the man and got into the car. Jack had just driven the car when he ran into the maid who had run out. He then lifts the maid into the car and speeds away. Anna finally heard the noise and came out with her gun. But she was too late and the car had already left. Jack didn't get very far, as the maid who was hit wakes up and shouts that you've ruined my family and starts attacking Jack. The maid died instantly when the two were involved in a car accident. Jack then staggered out of the car. At this point Anna came after him with a gun. She said, "Grandpa, get him." The gardener immediately rushed towards Jack. It turned out that the gardener was Anna's grandfather. He then took hold of Jack. The moment of truth was when Jack pulled out his mobile phone. He thought of the flashing light and flashed it. Suddenly, Anna's grandfather stopped the attack. Then he turned to Anna and said, "Give me the gun and I'll take care of him." Anna didn't think twice about it and gave it to him. But when he got the gun, he suddenly shot Anna. And then he chose to kill himself. It was so sudden that Jack froze for half a second. It was only when he saw that Anna was still alive that he came to his senses. Jack was going to strangle her with his own hands, but in the end he changed his mind and bled to death. Just then a police cruiser appeared out of nowhere. As he approached, it was Jack's best friend Tom. He had driven all the way here alone. Then Jack got in the car and they drove off. In the end, Anna slowly died. At this point, you can already understand why the rich people were so interested in Jack, because they are either sick or old. They want to live by transferring their minds to another body to get a healthy body. Anna's family is the heart of the industry. They have a clear division of labor. Anna is in charge of finding the target and taking care of it. The mother is responsible for hypnosis and mind control. Finally, the father is responsible for the surgical transfer of the brain. Then there's the maid who tells Jack that no one can control her and that Jack has ruined her family. We can see from this that he is Anna's grandmother. The gardener is Anna's grandfather. Both of them operated on Anna's father. That's why they both seem so strange. Perhaps the coexistence of two consciousnesses isn't so perfect. The main thing is that the flash can activate the body's consciousness to regain control of the body. That's why Jack found a loophole by mistake. The final black man may have chosen to kill himself because he didn't want to suffer anymore. Maybe death is the only way to get rid of it. Okay, that's it for this issue. Remember to like, follow, and retweet. See you next time.